Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I think that covers all the cases. My name is Joe, and you are watching the Raise.dev Hacktoberfest Help Desk. Thank you so much for tuning in with us on our last show of the day, the last show of Monday. If you are new to the Hacktoberfest Help Desk, this is your resource to get help with everything Hacktoberfest during the month of October. Whether you are looking to get into open source, trying to find a new project, you've got a specific issue that you can't solve, we are here to help 3 times a day on most days to get you the answers you need. And how that works is you can show up to a show and you can talk to us in chat. We've got a huge variety of wonderful guests who we're talking about a range of topics, a range of expertise to help you get everything you need. But you can also submit questions to us in advance at raise.dev Hacktoberfest. When you submit a question to us, we find a guest who can answer that question, get it in front of them, get them here on the show to answer it, and then send you the results of that, the recording, whatever it is, so you get your questions answered by a wonderful guest. But today we have a special guest who's going to talk to us about a project they work on, about an open source project that they maintain, and is also looking for contributions. So if you're still looking for a project, this one could be for you. But along the way, we're going to learn something about some web frameworks and about some Node.js. But before I get into that, as I said, we are here multiple times a day throughout October. You can see our schedule at twitch.tv raised as schedule. That is updated weekly. So the schedule for this week is currently up there. I'll be running through some of that schedule and what we have to come at the end of the show, so stick around for that. And finally, before we get into the show, Raise.dev is a service to help you level up in your developer career, whether you're looking for your first developer job, your second job, you're trying to get promotion, you're trying to change careers, whatever it is, we're here to help you beat the experience gap by matching you up with our expert coaches who will help you get to where you need to be. So if you're looking for help in your developer career and in leveling up to the next level, you can find us at raise.dev, where you can sign up to get matched with a coach. It will currently say, because we've had a lot of people subscribe, that you're in the wait list. Do not panic, that you will be matched with a coach. That is not a fake wait list. It is genuinely a wait list. I've had lots of people come into this chat being like, no, I've missed the chance. No, you haven't. It's all fine. Don't be worried. So a couple of things to note before we get started. As I said, you're super welcome to post questions in chat as we go along. We'll try and answer them as we go. So please feel free to post them. If you want to post or share a link, that is fine and that is encouraged. But let me know by mentioning Raise Devs and say, I'd like to post a link so that I can allow you first. Otherwise, our bot will put you in the corner because we have the filter set really strongly because there's a lot of spam at the moment. So please let me know before you post a link so I can make sure you don't go on the ban pile with all the spammers. And other than that, I think that's everything. So let me add our guest to the show and he can introduce himself. Welcome to the stage, Ethan. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It's late, but we're getting there. So yeah, would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers?
For sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Ethan. I am a software engineer 2 from Microsoft. based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I work on a pretty unique team. We co-engineer with Microsoft's biggest partners and help those companies build things that solve some of their unique business needs.
Interesting.
We're constantly doing like new stuff with new tech, getting able to use Kubernetes and Docker. And we even have teams, working with blockchain stuff. And it's just like, it's all those fun buzzwords you hear, but we actually get to do it and, try and find applicable business cases to solve with them. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So I guess like the reason Microsoft has that team is you're like helping them with Microsoft technologies, Microsoft APIs, like whilst you're in there, right? Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. For those who are unfamiliar, one of Microsoft's biggest products at the moment is Azure, like the cloud platform. And Azure itself has like tons and tons of things inside of it. And all of those products, tools, features are used by like so many companies, and there's actually professionals outside of Microsoft who like provide professional support for all those things too. But our team sort of is like that. Like we are like the at Microsoft professionals who get to come in and be like, let's get you set up on Azure Kubernetes or whatever, or Azure Docker or whatever you happen to be building.
Yeah. That's super cool. And as well as that, as our lovely lower third says, you're also a maintainer of this project called Fastify, right?
Yes. So I'm a big open source person, like just been in this space for a bunch of years now. It's probably why I've gotten my job in the first place. And in Fastify in particular is a Node.js project. It is a Node.js framework, very similar to the likes of Express or Happy, Restify. But we are fast, as the name says.
Cool. We'll get into those differences a little bit in a minute. But first, since we've already had our first question from someone who feels like they are not knowledgeable enough to get into projects and contribute this Hacktoberfest, I thought it'd be a good idea to go via like how your open source journey and how you came to be on this project. So obviously I've known you for a little while, and like you've seen your open source journey a little bit through like GitHub and that kind of thing. Do you want to like walk through people, like I guess your first exposure to open source and how this came about?
Yeah, most definitely. And I also seeing the question now and like definitely can speak to that in a little bit. But for my journey, it honestly has gotten a little hazy now because it's been so long. I think we're coming up on 5 years since my like first open source stuff. But essentially I was in university, early in university, and I was just introduced to like the Twitter, like Twitter in general, and then I got introduced to like the developer sphere, found the Node.js community, found the React community, and just started like seeing all of these brilliant people working on open source. And then I started writing my own code, and then nothing was really sticking. I was still very much a beginner, intermediate developer, learning at school as well. And then it wasn't until I was exploring some opportunities at my university to enable students to go to conferences or go to professional events. I used that to go to the big Node.js conference in the States back in 2016 or 2017.
Which big Node.js conference? There's like a million, isn't it?
It's been renamed. So it's the current OpenJS World, but it was previously Node.js Interactive.
I see. Okay, cool.
And I really wanted to go to this one because they not only had a bunch of vendors, but they also had a contributing like fest at the end of it, where they actually had like all the people who signed up for the contributor meeting get to go and actually contribute to Node. And that was like my first introduction to some like open stuff.
Nice, that's awesome. That's super cool. So how did you come to meet Fastify? And I'm asking this realizing that like you've been involved in Fastify for a couple of years. I don't think I know this story.
Yeah, it's so it's very similar. So in the same sort of at the conference, I met one of the maintainers of and creators of Fastify, Matteo, and I was asking him like, "Hey, I'm new to computer science. How do I learn more about backend systems? I wasn't learning it at university." And he said, "Just come and go and like pay attention to the project. Come and be a part of Fastify. Come and try and pick up any contributions you can." But I think actually sort of going to Angel, I believe your name is, your first question is actually just watching the repository, reading the source code as much as I can understand, following issues, following PRs, being almost like a lurker. Like, and, like a lot of live streams have like the participants who are like, they just watch. They don't comment. You don't even know they're there. You can do the same thing in open source repositories. You can just go, you can read issues, you can read PRs, you can read source code. And just by doing that and by being there over and over again, you start to actually learn what that project is all about and how it works and what it does. And then eventually that like golden ticket will come by. That issue will pop up on the thread that's like, oh, I know exactly how to solve that. Boom. You say, can I do this one? And in a good open source project with good maintainers will be like, yes, let's help you. And that's one of the things Fastify loves to do is like, let's help you make your contribution.
Yeah. So do you remember like what that golden issue was for you? What the first thing you jumped in and were able to do on Fastify?
I think if I look back, there was some
stuff. Imagine we can actually look, right?
Playing around with bugging, I think. There was some failed attempts to try and make the pretty print. Like we have like a pretty print method on the server, which makes a really nice like ASCII tree in your terminal when you run it. And I think, I don't even know if we ever even fixed that, but I think over time we wanted to improve it. And I was like, this seems easy enough. It wasn't. I never actually managed to ship that. But I do remember that being one of the first things I spent a great deal of time in. Other than that, I think it's just been small things in there. The thing that sticks out in my head, which has been like the biggest focus of my past year and a half now, is TypeScript, Fastify and TypeScript. So we can talk about that in a little bit, but that's definitely where like majority of my contributions are now.
Yeah, I actually, sorry, I was searching the repo for your like earliest issue that you got involved in.
Oh my God, I don't even know. It's probably embarrassing or something, but hey, you got to start somewhere.
It looks, the first issue I can see you being active in was 2017. The issue, take code coverage to 99%.
Yes, testing, yes.
Yeah, and you were writing tests for it, which is so great because like one of the things we've spoken about on this show a couple of times is like, documentation is really easy. Like is often a really easy first contribution for people during Hacktoberfest, to Angel's point. But also like unit tests are another thing that's like quite accessible and it's often also neglected. You write some tests in this a month, well, not even a month later, like a week later.
I could definitely speak to that.
And you were the one who announced that that you got the project to 99% coverage as well. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, cool. I definitely get to do that. Yeah, I remember. Remembering that now. Yeah, it started with testing. I think one of my other ones that I might still have pinned to my own profile was creating like a Fastify plugin for JSON web tokens or something around that space. That was really fun. But rating unit tests is a huge way to get started in contributing.
So I think it's time. Sorry, I just flipped my microphone. Let's jump into some code and see what Fastify is all about. So do you want to walk us? So one of the questions we had literally yesterday when I was talking on stream about the fact you were coming on today, someone was like, how is Fastify different to the other JavaScript web frameworks? Because obviously there's a million billion. And you mentioned briefly that like you had a focus on like speed and performance. What does that, I guess, mean in the context of a Node.js web framework? Because like, I guess it's Node.js kind of came about with an emphasis on a very particular kind of performance, the async event loop and this kind of thing. So what does it now mean to make a new web framework that's meant to be performant?
Yeah, so we don't even have to jump into code for that, but I can just from a high level, it all stems from performance for sure. People who may or may not pay attention to the Node.js project know very well that performance is a big deal. JavaScript is implicitly a slow language. That's not a secret. We are not as fast as things like native C or Go or Rust nowadays. And so as a result, we need to write really performant code to be a good option. And with that said, Node.js is a very viable option, even in regards to speed, because unless you're building a stock ticker and need to be microseconds fast, Node.js servers provide the reliability. And you're right, with the async event loop and such, one of the biggest things that Fastify was able to do above all the other frameworks is be async first and provide just really great and stable async code or async APIs for the framework, because a lot of users love using async await. They love using promises, but they also like using them wrong. And it's not their fault. They're hard. They're really hard. And honestly, we probably get them wrong ourselves half the time. But we provide a lot of methodologies to build your framework in the best way possible.
Sure. So like when you say people are using them wrong, like what is it that people most commonly do wrong with those that like Fastify helps address?
Yeah. So here, so I'm going to open up the Fastify docs and see if I can show something. Totally. Let's see how will this
Hey Luke, thanks for coming by. Sorry, the Vonage folks have dropped by from the Hacktoberfest Discord. Welcome.
Oh, sweet. Okay, share screen. Can I share this window?
You can. I've got it.
Cool.
There you go.
All right.
Cool.
So right here is our like getting started server, and you can see this right on the front page of Fastify. And I want to point out what a route declaration looks like in Fastify. Also make this a bit bigger just for the sake of anyone viewing.
That's good. It's good for it looks good on my screen. If anyone in chat's having issues, let us know.
So you'll see right here that there's a Fastify, you require, and then this is an immediate instantiation. This is your server, just like you create like a const app equals express, and you call it like that. And then you declare a route with the get. So this is the get route. It's the base URL, root URL. And then the route handler here is an async method. So for those who know what an async is underneath the hood, this is actually like a promise underneath, all said and done. But what most people are normally used to with a server like this is actually a synchronous route, or at least one that is not promise based. And most of the time it's callback based. So usually there's a third argument here that's like done, and you have to call done at the end of your function to be like, all right, we're done here. Yeah. Now a lot of users, like especially those coming from Express, will know that when you work inside of a route handler like that isn't asynchronous, it doesn't have the async keyword, it's hard to write asynchronous code. You have to do a lot of then chains, a lot of catching, and it can get very messy. Understandably, that's why we created async and await, is because promise chains are gross and sometimes hard to maintain. So what we've done in Fastify is we've made our route handlers support both the traditional callback method as well as a promise-based async way. So if you have a database here, let's pretend this route was going to access the database. You could just call on the next line, await db.get, and then do whatever operation you need. And your route handler will be able to do that promise operation just as it would any other async await function. And then when you're all said and done, you can return, you can do a lot of things, obviously, with an HTTP framework, but in the most simplest case, you can return payload. And because it's an async function, just by returning, you're resolving that route. And we, Fastify, the framework, understands what you're doing here, and will automatically make it a 200 response type, and we'll send that back to the user. So there's no fancy, dot code or anything like that, unless you're not sending a 200, and then there's methods to go about.
Cool. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Neat. Sorry, I thought I had a question, but I realized I resolved the question in my head already. So then obviously, like the server you've got below that, like const start, and then the server is also being run like asynchronously. But obviously that would be the case because you've got async handlers for the methods. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and actually, I will share something even cooler. So let's go to GitHub real quick, and I'm going to see if I can find this. It's called the COVID Green Backend API. So I don't know. Can I give a link? Can I post it? I'm going to
hang on.
Private
let me if you post it in the private chat, I can post it in.
Okay.
And that way I won't have to I won't have to go through and panic VIP.
So I will share that link with you, and feel free to share this. This is a public repo, and I love showing this thing off. This was created by the company Nearform. Nearform is a company out of Ireland that has a lot of Node.js maintainers on it. And one of them is Matteo. And Matteo is actually the one who created Fastify. And this repo right here is a Fastify server that is used in production for a COVID tracing application.
Right. Sorry, we're being raided by the Hacktoberfest Discord right now. I got distracted. Thanks for joining us, folks. It's so nice.
Hello, everyone.
It's I haven't seen a cross-platform raid before. Cool. So sorry, I got completely distracted. So this is called Made by the Project Mateo, made by Mateo, and it's built on Fastify, and it was it's a project involving COVID. I'm seeing contact tracing, postman collection down there, which is neat. Okay, cool.
And this is they're doing a ton of this. So if you go and look up the company Nearform, let's see if they put their thing at the bottom here. So if you go look up this company Nearform, a lot of their stuff is public. They write about their blog, like they blog about what they've created. And this application is really great and super digestible because we can actually go right into index. Cool. And you can see right here that they are, they're getting their server.
Right.
And then they're down here, they're, const server, require Fastify. And then they're going and doing they're using that server. They're registering what they've created. And then they go ahead and they do that same await server.listen. So just a comparison, this is that same await call. Fastify.listen. And it's right here. So if you want to see what a real Fastify server looks like,
this is a good example.
And it's super digestible because you can go and you can go over to the lib folder.
And you've got all the roots broken out. Nice.
Server.js, and then you can see how they're doing things. So here they have their plugin, and then they go and they register a bunch of stuff. So you have cores, you have form body, these things called auto load, which we can, these are some very niche parts of Fastify, which actually kind of brings me to the next part is what makes Fastify different than Express, and what maybe a lot of people are probably looking at this code. And if you're familiar with Express, you're probably already scratching your head, like, what is this? And that's on purpose. Rather than being like a middleware focused server, we are a plugin based server. Everything in Fastify is a plugin. Every route, every utility, every decorator is a plugin. And you can do so much with that. And that's kind of the magic that really makes us really fast. It's also what makes it really hard to do TypeScript Fastify, but we've managed anyways.
Okay.
But this is some really cool stuff where you'll see that, the entire server that they're loading in this application here is actually a plugin, and they're just loading that plugin into just a default Fastify server instance. And because everything in Fastify is a plugin, it enables them to encapsulate things really, really well.
Sure. Okay, so let's take a step back for a minute. This may require opening up some Express code, maybe. So you say Express is middleware based for folks who haven't encountered that term before, and actually even folks who have. When you first stumble into Express, it's like, oh, we're about middleware, and you try and Google that term. Sometimes you just get nonsense. What do you mean by middleware focused? Like what is a middleware, and how does that work in Express?
Yeah, so we can let's just take a peek at Express.js, see what comes up.
We've done a lot of very Ruby focused shows. This might find. I think this is like. No, we did Firefox OS, but this is like the first Node.js show I think we've had.
Oh, okay, sweet. Well, I'm very happy to introduce everyone to some Node.js stuff. So you can see here that Express's middleware functions, they are very synonymous to Fastify's plugins, but they do work in some crucially different ways. But you'll see a lot of this app.use. So if you've ever done Express work before, you'll know that you've most likely done an app.use, and then you've put something in here, and you can also see it's callback based.
The key bit's the next, yes.
Yeah. And so in this example, I believe I'm not entirely sure. I believe that this function is just going to get ran every time something happens in Express. By the way, I'm not an Express expert. I really don't. It's been a long time since I've even used it. But the principle here is,
I think what you said is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. That function would run whenever the server is executed. And it's that sort of, it's middleware. It's in its name. It's code that will exist in between the what's provided by Express, what's the baseline Express app, and then what you've built on top of it, like all of your routes and stuff. The middleware sits in the middle, and it's like how you introduce things like cores, how you wrap requests and replies.
Yeah. And the way, to my understanding, the way it was like explained to me, I think anyway, is like where this next becomes key is like you've got the request object, the response object, and then when you call next, it basically gives like the current state of the request and response and passes that on to the next layer in the middleware stack to then continue to manipulate until it gets down to like where it's resolved and returned, right? Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. And we have there's a very similar way in Fastify where we have a flow ourselves, which I'll be able to pull up. Docs, it's like we call it our life cycle, and it works very similar way where you have an incoming request, and then it does its routing, and then it does an on request hook. Then there's there's a pre-parsing hook. Then it parses the request.
And sorry, just to interrupt for a minute. These are like these numbers between like the 4 asterisk /5. That's like the possible realm of error codes you could be returning at this point in the life cycle. Or sorry, HTTP codes rather.
Exactly. So this is a very long life cycle for a request, but this is what's really incredible about, and it's why I love working on Fastify, is you can define every single one of these hooks. You can define down to a very unique method for a specific route, or you can define one of these at a very higher level that is run for every single route.
I see.
A great thing that you'll see is validation. Think about like you're creating a basic web app and you have like authorization, like, JOT tokens and stuff. You want to validate those before they get to the request handler itself. Pre-validation hook. If this fails, if this pre-validation hook fails here, you'll never even execute the rest of the request. So your code will be safe. So this is where we're sort of, we're trying to compare and contrast a little bit of Express to Fastify. And they both do the same thing at the end of the day. 2 very valid ways of building a server. Just the way Fastify goes about it is you can install these things as plugins and you can use them anywhere. The code is very synonymous. Your routes will look like plugins. Your plugins are plugins. There really is no middleware like there is in Express.
Okay, awesome. So thinking about this life cycle diagram and the code you showed us in the COVID green backend, can you go back to that server again for a minute?
Yeah.
So look, thing as plugins. So I guess that's where we now have like, there was... so like where it says add hook and add hook on response, add hook on request, that's actually writing to the lifecycle things you just showed us, right? They were names of the things in that. Cool. Awesome.
Yes. So exactly. So right here. So this is a very high level. Remember, the function that we're in is what's actually being registered at the highest level for this particular Fastify app. So when they added this hook here for on request, it's going to be executed every single request, which is why it's pretty generic. It's just a log. It's logging an incoming request. Same for on response. It's logging a completed request.
Yeah.
You can do this exact same stuff. You can this server that add hook, but you can do it at a lower level in your Fastify app for a very specific route, and it will only fire for that route specifically.
Interesting.
But the code will be very similar, and it's this encapsulation magic, which is 1, confusing, but 2, really powerful when used correctly, because you can define a function like this, where one of the arguments is just a Fastify server. And then wherever you register, see how we're even using register within this plugin? This function is going to be passed to a register call, just like like it's using here. And it will do all of the things that are defined in this function onto whatever instance of a server this is. And it's this encapsulation where if you think about it, you had 5 levels down where you keep registering plugins within each other. They're only going to affect their local space. There are ways that you can do a global we do have like methods to do like a global decorate or like a global register from a lower level, but for all intents and purposes, think about how a lot of this works is very natural. It's encapsulating.
Okay. So what is a plugin? Is that like an option? So is that like when I hear plugins, I think like, oh, I'm writing plugins. Whereas this case that like is not what we just saw, right? It's like we're just kind of they're basically middleware of a different name in that example, in terms of usage. So like I guess where does the separation come in?
Yeah, exactly. So let me try and show a little bit more. So we're still inside of COVID Green backend API, and we're under the server.js file here.
Sure. Yeah.
This server has one function, and it's just called plugin. And we're doing module.exports that plugin. This FP here actually is a utility that we've created called Fastify plugin. It itself helps with again.
Just to remind the Discord raiders who are new to the channel, if you have any questions at any point, throw them in chat. We will get to them as we go along. Sorry, go ahead, Ethan.
So this is a plugin helper for Fastify. It helps do some things about overrides and encapsulation. We recommend generally to use it to wrap your things, but there's a lot of configuration possible. Sure. Regardless, this function back in the COVID Green backend API project is exporting this singular plugin.
Single plugin. Okay.
And if we go back up to the root of this whole application here, index.js, you'll see that we are importing that function from lib server. This start server here is that
exported plugin. Okay.
And we'll see if we can follow. Will it work? Oh man. Oh, it won't work. Okay. You can see here
the new GitHub feature for like where that methods of vote selectively working.
Yep. So here on line 26, you can see that we're requiring Fastify and we're instantiating it with a initial configuration. And then on the next line, we're calling server.register start server, our plugin. So our entire Fastify app is being like loaded in one line, where you've gone ahead and you've created, you've taken that, like you've instantiated your Fastify app in line 26, and then you've gone and loaded your server, all the routes, all of the things that you've brought to the table on line 27. And it's that sort of where you can just, all you do is call .register and then a function that then passes along this server instance to it, down to itself. Sure. Then you can go ahead and do as much registering and hooks and routing as you want at that level. And we can go back to the start server again, and we can see what else is it doing. Actually, let's just go right over into the routes, and let's take the health route. That's a pretty easy one. So you can see here we have an async function. That first option again is the server. We're doing server.route, and we're defining a get method, putting a URL. We have a very simple,
very pleasing.
return OK handler. In fact, and then this one is also calling done, this function here.
Okay.
And then you can see here that we are exporting this plugin. It's actually, it is a plugin. We're exporting the plugin that's indicated by the FP, but this plugin does one simple thing. It adds a route, a symbol route. We jump up a level to health. We'll ignore the test. We'll go to the routes folder. You can see that there's no root file in routes. Something really fun. One of my favorite features of Fastify. But you can see we have a bunch of folders here. Health is one of them. Without going into each of these, I can say that each one of these folders is a collection of routes. We picked a very simple one that has one route in it. The data folder probably has a bunch of other routes.
I imagine it's going to be when we get into the database and that'll start to get hairy. But the health one is a good example.
So then we go back to server.js where we started this whole thing. Remember, this is the function that is loaded at this is our app right here.
Sure.
And if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see right here, line 29, another register call. And it's you can see it's chained. We use Venables so you can chain all of these together. And we're registering something called autoload. Autoload is a Fastify plugin that given this configuration here, given a directory, will go and load every single thing inside of that directory.
So every plugin that can find
Fastify plugins.
And it will automatically traverse multiple directory levels and just do that. Nice. That's awesome.
Exactly.
God, that's so much easier. I recently had to write. I was writing a Discord bot. Oh, sorry, my camera. There we go. I was writing a Discord bot on Express. Oh my God, what's going on here? Okay. I was writing a Discord bot and had to write like a whole plugin site like loader to like traverse the directories and read the exported modules. That's super neat.
Yeah. And this is an auto load is maintained by the core team. It is wonderful. So this is the example, like this is one of our recommended ways of building a Fastify app is you just create a directory called routes, and then each folder in the routes directory, it should be considered like its own route. So we have like the /health, and then we have /data / something else.
And that's something that's like recommended by the project. So like you inform the architecture of folders to some, like the directory structure of the project to some extent. Okay, that's very Railsy. That's nice.
Yeah, we never want to like say like this is the right or wrong way to do something, but this is just one of the like easy ways to build a Fastify app that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to me, obviously, but like we hope that it reads nicely. We hope that you can click into a folder and just know that like, okay, the function that's being exported from this folder is just going to be automatically registered as a route. And again, there's a ton of configuration with this stuff. There's so many ways you can tweak it, but like this is one of our favorite ways of organizing routes because it leads to so much stuff. It's the encapsulation that we talked about where at that level, that route only needs to be concerned with what is in that function. It doesn't have to be concerned with conflicting with any other route in your entire program. It's right there. It's all encapsulated in that one file, at one function. It enables testing. You know, you can test that individual. Each plugin, by the way, is totally testable.
Because we saw that in the health route, it had a test right alongside that.
Route. Let's go jump into that. Let's see how they're testing it, because that just shows like you can. Let's see what they do. Yep. So right here, before all of their tests, this is
they literally just add and require it to its own server. That's so cool.
Yep. So you can just you're testing your routes so standalone that it doesn't matter what other plugins are installed here. It doesn't matter what other utilities. It doesn't matter what other anything is installed on this entire app. But you can unit test just this route because it's encapsulated in a single plugin function. Load it into a blank server and go and test it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Makes for some really nifty code.
Yeah. So I don't want to take us to. Is there anything else in this app you want to talk about or show before I end up going down my rabbit hole of questions and taking us off track?
No, I think I'll leave it with saying if anyone is really looking to understand Fastify, and I would recommend taking a peek at this repository. I, as a maintainer of the project and a contributor for, I think we confirmed like 3 years now, starting in 2017, I've learned so much from just reading this code. And like I've written my own fair share of these projects. So it's not like I wasn't building Fastify projects in the past. It's just being able to see a example of it is really powerful.
Which, like, an example, by the way, that is like a super cool, impactful example as well, given this is like, COVID testing. So is there, they've also got, this is what I'm looking at. Okay. COVID Green Backend API. But there's like a bunch of stuff in this org. I'm guessing the push API is also Fastify and stuff.
I'm not sure. It could possibly be. If it's push, like if it's, we support HTTP2 and stuff. So it might be that kind of push, but maybe not. It's
Fastify. It's Fastify. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Cool. I was going to say there are other things. I think the big question that we sort of started on this whole tangent was like, what makes Fastify fast, or what makes it different than Express? And there's two other parts about Fastify, which is like it's sort of like the flagship, like what is Fastify, that I haven't even shared. If we want to go into that next, unless you have other questions.
No. So I mean, the questions I have are things that we can get to at any point. So yeah, let's absolutely do that. That sounds great.
All right, cool. So I'd love to talk about two parts of Fastify that I haven't yet, but what actually make it what it is.
Sure.
Here's actually our docs on middleware. I clicked on it accidentally, but you can see we actually have a Fastify Express module that lets you convert your Express app to Fastify, because we've cracked the code of like wrapping things and stuff.
That's
so
awesome.
that is a thing that exists.
Yeah.
But I was going to try and click on this link: validation and serialization. Everything in web servers is probably backed by JSON. JSON is
Okay.
used like not even in Node.js. Like it's used like in C#, it's used in Python. Like JavaScript object notation is very, very popular in HTTP frameworks nowadays. One of the things though about JSON is that it's slow. Parsing, validating, serializing, all of those things of a large JSON object and of payloads coming in and out of a request is a slow operation.
Right.
Though the Fastify creators, Matteo and Thomas, and many other contributors as well, have worked on, contributed to, and created some really awesome tools to make JSON validation and serialization quick, very fast. And it avoids any sort of like regular expressions operations unless it absolutely has to. And what this all boils down to is when you define a route in Fastify, here's an example. It's a post route. You can define a schema for that route. And this schema follows the very popularized JSON schema format.
Yeah.
The JSON schema format, you can then specify for different aspects of this request. So this is a post request, so it has a body. We're going to say that the body has a type of array, and its items are going to be powered by this other schema here. So this is a whole part of the JSON schema methodology. You define a schema, you can reference them. And you can see here that this body, again, it's a type of array. The items inside of this array for this body property is going to be made up of hello objects that has a value of string. When Fastify routes are given this information, we can actually speed up your requests for you by being able to serialize the incoming request in its raw form. We can serialize that before it even gets to your route handler, and we can do it faster than any other like serializer or thing is on the market kind of deal. And implicitly, because we're serializing it for you, we're also validating it. So this same method you get here, when you provide a schema like this, when you post to this route and you don't provide an array to the body, or you provide something else, or you don't even provide JSON, you provide another type of payload, Fastify will fail before it even runs any other handlers. It'll say, hey, like this route's getting a data thing that's not expecting. So we've eliminated the need for you to write your own like sort of like validation step in your handler. You just have to provide a schema, and we will do it, and we will process the incoming data really quickly for you. This is probably, done in every other framework. There's a way to do this. I know the Happy project has the Joy. I think they created Joy.
It's a very good naming scheme.
Yeah, I think it was like JOI. That does a very similar thing to what we're doing here. And I know a lot of people like to use that for like form validation, but it can also be used for like payload validation.
Sure.
So like I've always said, you could do this in any other framework, but this is one of the aspects that Fastify
out of the box defaults, right? It's like a perfectly fine reason to choose a framework.
Yep. So that covers one of our it
was one of two aspects that you said you wanted to show us. Yeah.
And now comes the router. So this is one of my favorite things. This is one of the things that got me really interested in Fastify in the first place.
Sure.
And I don't even know if we write about it in here, but I'm going to do a quick, does it even say it? It doesn't even here. So there's somewhere on one of the documents in our documentation, the Fastify router actually uses a data structure called a radix tree or trie. So if anyone has ever taken a data structures course,
I'm having PTSD just hearing that.
Yeah, right. Word. So a radix, the best way for me to describe like a radix in like the simplest way possible is think about like a dictionary. Right. This is a tree, by the way. So it's like a graph. There's nodes and there's branches and they connect to other nodes. And for a radix tree, each node is a character. So like, let's take two words, book and ball. They both start with the letter B. And in our radix tree, we would start with the first node being the character B. and then it would branch off to 2 more nodes. One would be A, and one would be O for ball and book. And they would go down to the next letter and the next letter. But then let's introduce another word that starts with B and O, so boy. So now we already have the B node, then we have the O node, but now we want to make a new node Y. So we create another node Y. And now we have this radix tree made up of the words. The router in Fastify does exactly this. You give it goes over those routes, and it takes those strings that you pass in as your route URLs, and it organizes them into a radix tree. Because then when an incoming request is received by Fastify, it's able to, traverse that radix tree really, really quickly, because it just go node to node to node in the exact order that the incoming URL is. And while it's doing that, it's actually able to know, okay, like, for example, if there's an encapsulated route, so let's say we have like API/v1/ whatever, and we have a special set of hooks and plugins that run only on the v1 part of our API, but we want it to run for everything inside of v1, but we don't want it to run for v2. This radix try and the encapsulation logic that goes into that all is just culminates into that sort of solution space that we've created with Fastify, whereby quickly traversing that tree to get you to the exact route handler that you want to run, it's also passing through all the other routes along its way that may or may not have a part to do in the execution of Fastify or whatnot. So that router is called Find My Way. It is also available on GitHub, but I don't know if it's under the Fastify org. I think it is. Find. There we go. Here it's so this is Delvador on GitHub is Thomas. He's one of the other creators and active maintainers of Fastify, and this is the router. Crazy fast HTTP router. Here we go. Uses the performant radix tree, or there's some other name for it. And boom. And this is even it's agnostic of Fastify. If there's a way to plug this into Express or Koa or any other HTTP framework, it's out there, and you can plug it in. You can get that sort of benefit. In fact, I think Restify uses it as well. Stayed right here. One of the other frameworks out there.
Interesting. Very cool.
Yeah. So that's one of my other favorite parts to share about Fastify. I nerd out on data structures like this sometimes, and just knowing like this is the magic that runs underneath the hood for Fastify, and it's right here, like available for everyone to read through. So I'll private link this to you, and you can share that out with people.
I've got it. I can drop it in. I'll give you to it.
Sweet.
So question from Rats. I'm sorry, Ratsakoglu. You're gonna have to we're gonna have to talk about how to pronounce your username, because I get into this problem every time. From Ratsakoglu, they asked, what data structures do other routers use? Radix trees seem like the obvious solution, and it's in every data structures course.
Yeah, great question. I don't know the exact answer for like what other routers are used, but I do know that people have experimented with more like matching based routes, where they use like think about how like a popular like regular expression works, where you create a pattern and then you match it to that pattern. In a similar way, a lot of like basic routers will just do like a switch statement, where it'll just pass in the URL, and it'll just do case by case by case, like, okay, does it match this? No. Does it match that? No. Does it match that? And it's that kind of thing where, like, in some cases that's probably even faster than a radix, because there's no complicated data structure to have to create in and then run through. It's like you can just loop over a bunch of strings, and strings in JavaScript are pretty fast to compare. But yes, it does seem like the obvious choice. I believe there are faster ones. There is a faster method. I think it's something along the lines of like it builds it as it's ran, or something like that, where like rather than like pre-building the router,
just in time routing
is something along those lines. Don't quote me on it. I'm saying it on the internet, so now it's out there.
Sure.
But there's probably ways to be faster, but this is one of the cooler ones. And
there's actually on Find My Way, it's right there on the screen here. There's actually a benchmark to some other routing that they've done that lives in its own repo. There you go. There's that link. So I would guess some of these, I imagine in those benchmarks, maybe they get into a discussion of it. Let me have a look. Static with same radix. It does look like, I mean, there's entries for radix in some of these other benchmarks, but I don't know.
It could also just be like how the radix implementation is, because like there's many ways to build a radix tree or trie. So there's static, dynamic, I guess, mixed static. There must be a couple of ways to do a radix tree.
Right. Another thing I was going to post in, I just closed it. Was if you're interested in how to build a router, Gary Bernhardt actually has a course, a screencast on building a router. God, what is it? One sec. It's in his Destroy. There we go. It's in the Destroy All Hardware series. I'll post it in chat for folks. There you go. A simple web router from Gary Bernhardt, famous for his many things, but also the WAT talk. So I was going to ask. Do you know where in COVID Green that the schemas that you showed us are defined? Because I'd love to see that kind of like on a Meteor example.
Let's see. They may not have done it,
sure.
But we can dig around and see if they did. Let's check data, see what happens. Okay. They might not have done it.
Okay. Which in itself is useful, like knowing that, like, this framework has several big features that make it unique, and you don't necessarily have to take everything to use it, right?
Yep, but we do have.
I did see like a really. Oh, okay, nice.
Here we go. Cool. So Fluent schema, another really cool Fastify treat for everyone is you can build schemas in this. I think Fluent is like a style of like. It's like a Fluent API. I think it's a style of API. So you can see here that you do body and it's an object, and then you define a prop and it's a string, and it has a min length and a max length, and then you have a prop and it's also a string, and then you have another layer to your schema here, and it's another object. So I believe Fluent schema in this context, this is just a JavaScript file. By the way, we're inside of the exposures routes now of that backend API, so they are using schemas. You just have to find the right route. Cool. And these schemas are built they generate JSON when it's executed. So there's a JSON schema is generated by Fluent schema, and that is loaded into the routes here. You can see you have const schema equals require schema. And then if we scroll down, there's so much in here.
That was a big comment block.
Yeah, right. You can see right here, here's a route. It's the exposures verify route, and then they're passing in the schema through schema.verify.
Right. Okay.
And if we dive into some TypeScript stuff in a bit, I think this is a great place to start getting some gears turning in people's heads about if you see here on request.body, they are destructuring the hash property from the body. I could probably guarantee you that inside of the schema, they're defining that hash property in their schema. And it looks like a string because they're using substring here.
Substring, yeah.
The TypeScript people, anyone who's ever done some TypeScript before will know that, how the heck do we provide a type for hash for this request.body if it's not normally there? Like a body could be anything.
Right. Yeah.
So then how do we safely, define the types for the most dynamic parts of an HTTP framework? And that is like sort of a T, like some of the problems that we had to solve when building the Fastify types. So I don't know if we want to get into that now, but that's
and if you want to go into it, you're very welcome to go into it. I don't know anything about TypeScript, so I'm going to be nodding as we go along. I think we had one of the viewers said purple heart TypeScript purple heart. So if you want to get into it, this is your show. Take us away.
All right, sweet. I love my biggest contribution to Fastify to date has definitely been the TypeScript definitions.
Cool. Which you said there's is some meaty, difficult work. You just gave us an insight into why, but I imagine there's other parts that have made it difficult.
Yeah, so let's just take a quick peek.
Oh, that's dead.
So just define the Fastify function, which seemed pretty simple. Here it's a quadruple overload with generics that are longer than the declaration itself. And by the way, the generic that starts here is passed through to the following two generics. And then that same generic that's set here is passed down into other parts. It's ugly. I don't even have to dive into it, but I need to.
Do you want to? Can you explain for folks who haven't done TypeScript, and also I want to see if it aligns with my understanding of types from other languages, like what a generic is in that case?
Yeah. So actually, here let me take
I'm going to clean my glasses while you do that.
Yeah, of course. I'll also take a quick step back and say I have a talk that I did this summer. Plugging my own stuff.
Yeah, please do.
I have a talk where we actually rebuild the Fastify types from going over cool. how we implement this really nasty generic overload mess. And I believe that I did it in a much more approachable way than sort of just show and tell your code, because we actually start with just a normal function with no generics, and then we slowly add them on top of each other and actually piece by piece them together. So I'll have to find that talk, but
I'll Google it while you're talking. I'll get
it. It was this past year over the summer. It was a virtual talk.
What conference it was at?
OpenJS World.
Cool. I think I found it.
Cool. So what is a generic, for those who are wondering? I want to try and find a better example of one, a more simple one. A generic is, I think I'm going to defer to the TypeScript docs for generics because I don't want to scare people away. Generics in a type language are really, really powerful. Mm-hmm. So let me go down to here. Sorry, I missed it. The identity function. So when you have a function and you have an argument in that function that it could be of any type. Types in TypeScript, and let's think of the primitives of JavaScript: strings, numbers, booleans, objects, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. If you have a function that could take any of those, it could take a string, it could take a number, it could take an array, etc. And then it returns whatever it was given. So in this example, that's what identity usually refers to. It returns whatever is passed to it. That function needs to then know, okay, if I'm getting past a string, I'm going to return a string. If I'm getting past a number, I'm going to return a number. In this case, you can use this generic to tell the type system, saying, hey, the argument that you're getting passed is going to be of some generic type T. And whatever that type is, you're also going to be returning that same type. And you can see when we use it, we say let output equal the identity function, and then we pass it the data type string, pass it an actual string. TypeScript will be like, okay, great. This is exactly what I expect, because the argument that I'm getting passed here is of type string. Mm-hmm. The generic is indicating that it's a string, and the output, as you can see here, the dark syntax highlighting is also a string now. Mm-hmm. And so in your TypeScript application, this function, this identity function, which has a string generic, if it's going to get passed to something else, only expects there to be a string versus, something that could expect to be a string or a number or whatever. This lets TypeScript compiler make decisions like, hey, like, no, that's wrong. That function right there could in fact not return a string, or in this certain circumstances, it is returning a string. So we can compile your code in the way that you've written it in that way.
Cool.
That's a rough introduction to generics, but I hope that sort of eases some people into it.
I think that was a great introduction. And in particular, one thing that's really interesting to this in TypeScript about me, so I hadn't really looked into TypeScript at all before, is actually, so Matt said in chat, old templates, because this is very like C++ style template syntax, but then they use like, I don't know, the language I'm used to seeing it, like they refer to it as a type variable, which is like, it's always been very intuitive language for me. I think that like, hey, this is a variable on a type level rather than a value level. And so like you can slot the type in there and it gets like called throughout. But yeah, Matt is right that this does look very templatey. Cool. Okay, neat.
And so I think before we even go back to the Fastify types, because I'm going to show a little bit of this, there is one of my favorite parts. I don't know about other type languages too much, but I'll say that there's the one thing that we use heavily in Fastify is constraints. Constraints in regards to a generic is it takes generics and makes them a little bit stricter. So generally speaking, a generic can be anything. You can pass anything to a generic. That's the purpose. But there's another layer to that you can add, where you can say a generic must be constrained to some type. So it can be a lot of things, but it at least needs to satisfy some constraint. In this example here, we have an interface called lengthwise, where it needs to have a defined length property of number that returns a number type. The generic that you pass to this function here must at least be a lengthwise type. It must at least, I was thinking the best word to implement this interface. So anything you pass here must have a length property. Great example of this is like, if you try to pass a Boolean to this function, it will fail because Booleans don't have a dot length, or at least they're not supposed to. A string or a string does have a length. An array has a length. A special object data structure that you've created can have a length and can be used in this function. And it's that power, it's that constraint on your generic that we use to actually do some stuff with our generics in Fastify. And I think I'm trying to think of the best way to take this, because there's a couple things that I've alluded to. We were talking about schemas before. And I also showed a brief show of like some of Fastify's core types. And I think for the sake of information overload, or like not trying to overload too much, I want to go back to the schema stuff that I was talking about and was hinting at, and maybe show a little bit there. And in regards to
So I was just typing in chat that constraining stuff is like type classes in Haskell, which is it's neat.
So let's go to the TypeScript documentation. This is a very long file, by the way. So
wait, did I just see a typo? Is there an easy to fix docs typo? Go up.
Gosh.
Keep going up. Keep going up.
Oh, are you thinking about this?
No. Keep going up. Keep going up. Don't forget to install. Angel, I found a contribution for you. You asked for a documentation contribution. We've got one.
We love that. Yeah, send it right in. We'll get that one merged. There you go.
Sorry, please continue.
By the way, I might as well point it out. I'm learning French, and I have a browser out on that will sometimes change the spelling of words into their French.
It just randomly does that on a web page?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'll plug them. It's called Fluent. Great application. I highly recommend. Totally free. And I have it on like a few words per page, and then it like goes ahead and like will just randomly change words on me, so I can like
French and Spanish. I need Dutch.
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
Cool, that's cool.
Yeah. What was I even scrolling to?
I don't know. I'm so sorry.
Generics. All right. I want to make sure this is the right section. Yeah. Okay. So using generics, it gets its own section inside of the documentation, because this is one of the things that we're really happy about, and it's one of the things that's actually changing for the better soon. We talked before about schemas and how Fastify already uses schemas, JSON schema, to validate and serialize your route. Because the most dynamic part of your route is like what the user is going to pass to it. It's like what's going to be in the headers is what's going to be as the query string of the route, what's going to be in the body of post routes. And so when we were building the type system, we were like, okay, hey, like what can we provide for our users inside of their handler function in regards to like type safety? Because if they're going to be using what's passed into the post route, that body, we don't want them to just have to do like as any or as unknown or just like hope for the best, Right. Types, there should be some layer of type safety there, even though it's really hard to provide true type safety at runtime. So what we've done is we've created a generic on all of the route handler methods. So get, post, head, option, so on and so forth. We created them there. And in that generic, we provided 4 properties, one for each: body, query string, params, headers. Each one of these properties can be given an interface. And that interface is what's actually going to be passed down through your route, all the way down to the route handler. Okay. And so the request in this instance, let's take a quick peek. We have our interface here for the query string. The query string is going to have a username and a password property. When we pass that query string interface to the generic here of query string, it's going to get passed down to this request.query property inside of the route handler. And then I'm going to give air quotes, safely destructure the username and password from this route. So now some might be thinking, but wait, we're not actually validating that either of these properties exist on query. And you're right. So that is what we have combined with, let me see, JSON schema. Right. The next section, we lead into it on purpose. Given here's the exact same thing from before. So given a JSON schema for the query string, it's a type of object. It has 2 properties, username and password. We say there's no other additional properties and that both username and password are required. Right. We then compile those schemas using a utility called JSON to TypeScript. It's a really cool CLI. And
the output there is saying types. So I'm seeing where this is going, which is, it will compile JSON to TypeScript type definitions.
Yes. So it takes this JSON schema.
Mad cool. Okay.
Turns it into an interface. And then inside of your code, you can import the JSON schema you created. You can import the interface from your type definitions that it was generated automatically for you from the CLI. And then you can pass both of them to your route. So you can pass it to the query string parameter of the generic and pass it to the query string parameter of the schema property of the route. And then inside of your request, you can actually finally safely destructure from a potentially like highly dynamic part of a request. And for all intents and purposes, this is as safe as you're going to get when it comes to type safety on like an HTTP server. Because for those who are still maybe a little confused about TypeScript, but types are removed before your code is ran. So when you write code in TypeScript, that only exists like pre-runtime, I guess is maybe the best way to put it.
Because at the end of the day, it still goes through the JavaScript, the Node.js like virtual, whatever it's called, V8. It still goes through V8. In the end, right?
Exactly. It's JavaScript. TypeScript turns into JavaScript. So there's no types at the end of the day. So how do you, even if we're putting in this type safety by letting you pass a generic, how are we actually making sure that you're doing it right?
Yeah, which is actually, to get onto a total side about this, is really interesting because like the big advantage of types is, like, as you said, like safety and like programmers doing the right thing, and lots of compilers for typed languages will go further and like use those types to do things like type inference once it reaches a compiler where they can like detect what type something is meant to be and this kind of thing. But like TypeScript just doesn't even bother with the complexity added to the compiler for the language with types. It just dumps it before then. It just has the essentially annotation benefit, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I want to end this little spiel that I'm going on with one really cool thing that hasn't been solved yet, and I would encourage everyone to go out and try and solve it because it's going to make these things incredible.
Yeah.
I've been seeing some talks popping up on different things about exactly this, but take everything that I just showed you. You consider you've written your code in JSON, right? And then you've gone and passed it to a compiler. So you know that JSON can be turned into TypeScript. So then what's stopping you from just passing your JSON right here to the schema property? And then the type system, or the type definitions, sorry, not the type system, the type definitions for Fastify being smart enough to go and look at the JSON here.
Right.
And then go and infer this interface that we're right at the moment generating. But inferring that interface, and then without even the need for a generic
that step, and that bringing it into the like passing it to the server function,
passing it down to the handler chain,
yeah.
And that's possible. There is a really cool tool called Typebox. I don't know if it's gonna. I hope it should pop up. Yeah, so it's already sort of exists. You can go ahead and use a really great example. This is like you can export a type, and then you export const record schema. This is TypeScript code, by the way. Type.object, user ID, and it's a type of GUID, and a timestamp type integer. And then you go ahead and you say your type here is going to be a static analysis of the type of this generated schema. And look at that. The record here is getting that JSON schema from that all like during your code time, like at the static point.
Can you drop me that link in private?
Yeah, and this is the sort of stuff that we've already recommended people take Typebox and use it in their Fastify apps as sort of a replacement for Fluent schema, because it has a very similar API, very sort of like Fluent API to it, but then it lets you have like really awesome type safe schemas. So you can just pass that type, this static record thing right to your generic of your route, and then you're good to go. What we hope to do in the future is put something like Typebox inside of the Fastify type definitions, so that you don't even have to use Typebox. It's done for you. You just put a JSON schema into your thing, and then you're good to go.
Very cool. That seems like a really good tangent to break into contributing to Fastify.
Yeah.
Before that, you'll be happy to know Rascal2 in chat said, well, all these types / JSON schema validation has won me over. Next backend will be in Fastify.
Woo! Love that. All right. Let's talk about contributing. So first and foremost, we are a Hacktoberfest project. So bring on the pull requests. We'd love to work with you. One of the things that's really important to Fastify is the community, and a lot of the maintainers, some of their first open source contributions were to Fastify, and now they themselves have become maintainers and active contributors of Fastify. We've invited them and brought them on, and we're love to grow that. So like if you come into Fastify and you provide a lot of positive impact for our community, helping with docs, helping with testing, helping with features, helping triaging issues and pull requests and stuff, in a matter of time, you might be able to join the contributing team, and you can be a part of, the Fastify group. And we'd love to have you. And with that said,
the dream.
If you're new to contributing and you're a little bit afraid of it, a lot of our maintainers have been doing this for a while, and we are more than happy to just help walk you through the process of making a PR. No question is stupid here. If you need help setting up Git and getting things running locally, we have a Discord channel that we can go back and forth on. We can even go back and, there's many ways to get in touch. So
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't noticed already, there is that Hacktoberfest topic on the repo. It is down for Hacktoberfest. Where is that the Discord under the chair? There we go. That's the Discord. The Discord is linked. Oh, thanks, Discord. I've accidentally just joined your Discord.
Welcome.
The Discord is linked under the chat badge at the top of the repo. If you're struggling to find that link. No, close that. Oh no, I can't get back to my repo now. Cool. So I just said that you mentioned like people can get help in the Discord and stuff. What if you've got a contribution? Obviously, every project is a little bit different in terms of what they expect from a contributor and what the contributing guidelines set out. I'm guessing I saw like code of conduct and stuff, so I'm guessing you're pretty well set up with guidance for new folks.
Yeah. So we have a couple things. We are a OpenJS project, if anyone's familiar with that. So part of the OpenJS Foundation.
Cool.
And we are, I don't know. I don't even remember what stage we are. We might still be in one of the early stages, but.
Oh, so it's like kind of like the cloud.
Right.
Wow, what's it called? Oh my God, it's going to drive me mad. The CNCF. It's like them with like the incubating stages through the thing.
Yep.
Is that how? Yeah, cool. Makes sense.
So right here, we are a growth project in the OpenJS Foundation. Other OpenJS projects include Express, Electron, a ton of others. I think a lot of the web components stuff that Google's doing is a part of the OpenJS Foundation. Cool. Yeah, you can also see here, like we have a lot of contributors. So here's a lot of the Fastify core team at the moment. We have a plugins team. So if you want to just focus on plugins, we have other contributors that have done other things than just contribute code, like help with our website and stuff.
Right.
And, we even have past collaborators. So like, just because you don't contribute anymore doesn't mean you're any less valuable because your stuff is
like struck from the record and you don't exist.
Exactly. It's important.
Yeah.
And there have been efforts for translations. I don't know the state of that, but that is always a thing that is really popular in the Node.js world at the moment is helping translate docs. So if that's something you're interested in contributing with, definitely come and help. What else can I say about contributions? We're not too stickler about anything like commit wise or whatnot. I'm trying to think the best way to put it. It's all outlined in our contributing document. We obviously want clear and concise stuff. You want to document. We want to see tests for new features. I think another thing we can speak to, actually, I'll let Joe, you can ask a question, but I do have more to speak to in regards to sort of how contributions do work in Fastify.
Go with that. I just realized I had two kind of core questions about technology, which I have to circle back around on that I totally forget. So go with that. Okay. Talk about that and we'll come back around. Cool.
So I think I will also tell everyone before I even say stuff is one of the main maintainers of Fastify is Matteo, and Matteo has done a few talks on sustainable open source. So I implore you to go and poke around there because he will say it a lot better than I can and with a lot more information to share. Yeah. But from a personal standpoint, I want to speak to what has made Fastify such a open source project for myself and why as a maintainer I have never been burnt out from contributing to Fastify and why a lot of our maintainers don't feel burnt out. And it's because Fastify is a project that we use. We are building Fastify for our own use. You saw today the COVID green backend API that is used by the company that Matteo works for and a couple other contributors as well. And it's that example of when we work on Fastify, when we are solving, when we are adding more features, we're doing so for our own sake. We're doing so for our own applications. But when we've created it for our own things that we've built, we then share it back out. Yeah. But we go and provide, we're not out there building the ultimate server. We're not building the ultimate framework. We're not trying to compete.
There's the particular
with
use case and need that you're addressing rather than going for the be all and end all for everyone.
Exactly. We, even to take it a step further, there's a working group, a part of Node.js, where a lot of the maintainers of projects like Restify, Express, Fastify, Koa, we all get together every 2 weeks and talk about the state of HTTP in Node.js, and we work together. We're not competing with each other. So going like, Express for Fastify, like more Express and Fastify. Like, what is that community? What is the Node.js backend framework community all about? And just want to share, like, the sort of the core to this is we provide help. If you have a question, we have a help repo. We also have the discussions feature enabled on the repo. So like, feel free, if you're having trouble using Fastify, 100% come and ask us. Go in the Discord. Nice. We are more than happy to provide pointers. But what we don't really do is, like, if you need a feature for Fastify, we're not just waiting to come in, like, service that. We're not just going to build a feature for you because you ask about it.
Yeah.
But if you want to build it and contribute it and provide tests and work with us and the maintainers on getting it merged in, we're like, double thumbs up, let's do it. We love growing it. And that is what has made Fastify so sustainable, because we're not out there burning our own, like, developer time and stuff to go and provide service to other people. We just do what
I really hope towards the end of 2020 there are not still people rocking up in random open source projects demanding new features. We know better than that now.
Yes, exactly.
Hopefully. Okay, so I had two questions about Fastify that are completely irrelevant to contributing that I had completely forgotten about. I'm so sorry. So first one, ecosystem. So a lot of, like, the JavaScript kind of Node.js web ecosystem that I've seen is, like, in some cases, like, already assumes you're using it in a middleware style. What do you, and I actually think I accidentally saw this on COVID Green with the PG library. So, like, how do you use that kind of stuff with Fastify? Like, if you wanted to grab a random package from Node.js, does it work just okay with the plugin ecosystem? Or do you, or like with the plugin system, or do you have to use packages that are only written for Fastify? Is that even a question that makes sense?
It is definitely makes sense. And we actually have an ecosystem tab on our document.
Nice,
on
you're
our
ready for me.
Cool. But you definitely alluded to something important, which is, does the plugin that you create for Fastify actually have to be created for Fastify? And the answer is no. But it does need to satisfy some of the API requirements. We need you to actually tell us when your plugin is done running. So it needs to resolve if it's promise-based, or it needs to call the callback if it's callback-based. But that's it. It can, and then, and what we've, and a part of that is, we have a lot of core plugins. We even have things that, like, have been rewritten. So, like, cores, for example, there's a very popular just cores library that is for Express. Cores actually works with Fastify, but I think have rebuilt it just to make it a little bit more Fastify, because there's more improvements we can squeeze out of it when we do it the Fastify way. But with that said, there's a lot of Express stuff that still works for Fastify. In fact, there is the Fastify Express project, which I don't see on here, but we bumped around it before.
Yeah, the one where you were showing how to convert between middleware and
Fastify Express does exist, and it does enable you.
I can't find where I saw it now, but in the COVID Green project, I saw PG, the generic Node.js Postgres client, being wrapped in something that made it a plugin. I'm going to find it now.
Ooh, okay. I see here there's a server.pg.write, so it must have been on
it's in lib plugins pg index.js. That's what made me think of this question.
Lib plugins pg index.js. Yes. So cool. Let's see here.
There is, hang on, no, never mind, ignore me. Const pg Fastify Postgres. So it's not using the generic npm pg. Okay.
Well, it sort of is. I believe they're using, they're requiring it here, and they're doing some sort of, like, global install or something. And then I imagine that Fastify Postgres, this plugin, probably requires that. So it probably like, you need to, like, do something to set it up, and then it uses it underneath the hood. But it's really easy. You can take almost any Node.js module and just decorate it onto a Fastify instance. That's what a lot of, we see a lot of this register stuff. But the other very common method is server.decorate, and it does exactly what you think it does. It just adds whatever you're doing to the instance, and it makes it usable throughout the project. So you can, plugins like Fastify Postgres are decorating the server instance that you're passing down to it with a access to the Postgres database.
Cool. So the other question I had, which we might want to show this, we might not, was like when you start a new app in Express, there's like a bunch of generators and you just basically invoke it on the command line and you've got your first app. Like, what's the story for starting a new Fastify app? So you recommended people look at this one as an example, but I guess you also have like ways to bootstrap an app.
Mm-hmm. So there exists, I believe it's the Fastify CLI. I don't use it too often, but I know it exists. Yes,
that sounds like me with all programming.
Yeah, right. It's like, there's an easy way to do things, but I want to make it hard on myself. So you can bootstrap a Fastify project using the Fastify CLI.
Cool.
This is, it's owned by Fastify. We definitely support that. We love for people to use it and contribute up to it. Cool. And then, looking for examples, Fastify is used by a lot of stuff out there. So there's a lot of resources to find out how to do Fastify and see it in action. And then we encourage people to try new things. Mm-hmm. If you're stuck building your web app the same way that you're building an Express app, it's probably not going to work the same in Fastify. Mm-hmm. Converting it one-to-one. But, we have a compat layer here, this Express utility, which helps you essentially do all of your Express stuff in Fastify. And you can then start working things over one by one as you go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In regards to bootstrapping a project, I would say Fastify CLI is a great place to start. Other than that, check out our docs and our unit tests. I think a secret that I like to share is if you're trying to figure out how to use an API, go and read the unit tests. There's no better way to figure out how something works than seeing the explicit.
Them literally testing if it works.
This thing should do this if given this parameter. And then in the next line, it does exactly that. And it's like, oh, that's how you use that API. Cool.
It's actually, that's funny because that's I imagine you've encountered cones before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's people who haven't. There's this a way of learning code called cones, where you solve programming exercises, but you do them by writing unit tests, and then the exercise thing, the framework that's helping you do the cones, will run the tests. So it'll give you achieve this output, and then you write the test that does that. So it's literally learning programming languages by unit tests. So it's really good advice. It's definitely a solid thing. Cool. Rad. Well, thank you for going on those two diversions. I can't remember where we left with contributing. This is why I shouldn't host at 11:30 at night, folks, because I get all over the place. But one place I would like to end on contributing is what kind of issues are open now that folks might be able to dive back into. So you were showing issues before. The whole repo is marked as Hacktoberfest. So our usual reminder, now that Hacktoberfest is opt-in at the repo level, any pull request to a tagged repo will be valid. So the issue does not have to say Hacktoberfest for you to be able to do it. You can do any pull request to a repo with Hacktoberfest on it for it to count. So good first issues obviously going to be a really good target. And there's quite a few on this page already with a lot of comments, some of them.
Yeah, we don't tend to have a lot of, we have a pretty low number of issues.
Good first issues are rare.
But feel free to come to jump in and click around. And like I said at the beginning of this talk, this call is one of the best ways you can learn about contributing and learning about a project is just reading through issues. Even if you can't contribute yet or can contribute to that issue in particular, reading through them and seeing how others are doing things, how others are making pull requests. Because I guarantee you, if you pay attention to Fastify, put it on watch mode and let it fill your inbox and then just go through them, have an hour. It's consider it like you're learning how to code again, or you're just learning how to code in general. You're going through that and you're being a maintainer. And you will 100% come across a new issue, probably created by one of the core team members, that it's we this method is broken or this bug is happening, or there's this feature that we want and we're going to build ourselves, but we might as well put it on the issue tracker in case someone wants to build it first and then, get an opportunity to contribute. And at the same time, when we post features like that, we tend to already have an idea like what we're going to build or how we would do it. So it makes it even easier for us to contribute with someone. Whereas there's like, hey, like never written, a Fastify feature before. Be like, okay, great. You want to do this one? We'll help you. We'll tell you exactly where you need to start. And we'll do that. We'll go through it with you. And also the Fastify code base isn't huge. I would say I'm sometimes scared when you look at things like React or Node and like it's just massive. And you're like, how could I ever contribute to a project so large? Like even like other apps are like quite big. Fastify doesn't have a whole lot of code to it. So you have the main file has a lot of it. A lot of whatever is in Fastify is in the main file. It's just like defining all of the properties and stuff with a Fastify instance, and then it exports it. That's sort of it. Nice. And then everything else is just baked into the lib folder. So we really encourage people, like, don't be afraid of diving headfirst into the code base. We don't transpile anything. We don't use Babel. We don't use Webpack. It's all ES6 standard. So it should be very approachable for any JavaScript developer.
Wonderful. Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, that's everything I had. Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
I don't think so. This has been awesome. I'm really happy that I got to be on here, and I'm hoping
this has been super great.
Yeah, I hope that I see some of these faces in Fastify soon, and I hope if there's any other times you guys have questions about open source, like more than happy to answer and help out.
Awesome, cool. Where can folks find you if they want to do just that?
Oh, Twitter. That's probably the best way.
Cool. And that is Arrowood Tech, right?
Yeah, that's that.
Nice. Awesome. Rad. Wicked. Well, thank you so much, Ethan. I'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good one, everybody.
All right, everyone. Thank you again, Ethan. That was awesome. I definitely I struggle so much writing JavaScript in terms of like just starting a project because the ecosystem's so huge. And now Ethan has made me want to go start a JavaScript project, which would be a bad idea for everyone involved. But thank you. That was awesome. I hope it was useful for all of you watching. Before we wrap up, before you go anywhere, couple of things. First of all, we're going to briefly run through who is in the schedule for the rest of the week. If you want to get notifications when we go live again with other amazing guests like Ethan, click follow now on Twitch. And when you click follow, the little love heart, there will then be a bell that pops up that you have to click. If you only click the love heart, it won't give you notifications. I've done the YouTube thing. So click the love heart, click the bell. You'll get notifications when we next go live. And if you want to look at when we go live yourselves and set your own reminders or whatever, you can find our full schedule for the week at twitch.tv, RaiseDev's schedule. That is updated every week. So it's updated with the stuff this week. Some spoilers for you. Tomorrow is a super exciting day because tomorrow Dev2 take over the channel. Dev, the wonderful coding site, community blog, they're taking over our channel once a week every week in Hacktober. They are coming to us at 4 p.m. Central European time tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern US time, and they are going to dive into liquid tags tomorrow. So Forum, the software that Practical Dev2 is built on, uses liquid tags in some places. And so Nick, who hosted last week, is coming on with Arrowood, another dev at Dev2, and they're going to jump into that templating liquid system within Forum and fix some more issues. So that'll be super fun. Lots of live coding with Nick and the team. Join that 4 p.m. European time, 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. In the evening, you've got me again with Anand, who is a solutions engineer at HashiCorp. Super cool. HashiCorp is a really interesting company doing some really amazing cloud work. Anand's going to tell us all about his slightly unusual, I hear, developer journey, and also his slightly unusual job. What is a solutions engineer? What is professional services, and what is it he does? And we might get into some code by the end of that as well. Wednesday is what I've been calling the Twilio day. If you've watched any of the other streams, that is because in the morning we have Layla Porter, and in the evening we have Lizzie Siegel. So we've got Twilions either side of the day. It's going to be a great day. With Layla Porter, we are doing C# and .NET stuff. We're going to be looking at a project that Layla built. We're going to be doing that, what we're kind of calling Git Blame. We haven't rolled out branding for our segments yet, but we call the old code game Git Blame. So Layla's going to be walking us through this project that she has built in C#, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that project. And then with Lizzie Siegel in the evening, we are looking at Swift. So it's C# and the Swift today. And then sometime in the middle is me and Wilhelm again. So Wilhelm was one of our earlier guests. We spoke about his kind of independent business journey. He built a Slack integration that is now his full-time job. Wilhelm's going to be back. We're not entirely sure what we're doing with Wilhelm yet, but that's in the middle. Thursday, we've got Juan Pablo Flores from GitHub, GitHub Education to be exact. He's going to be showing us the code behind a recent online graduation that GitHub did for all their students. That's pretty cool. And then we have Gregor Martinus that evening. And then Friday, the last day of this week, we have PJ Haggerty in the morning. We have Shai Ruparel from Contemptful in the middle. And we have Frida Casas, another Raise.dev alum, in the evening. So big week, lots of cool stuff. Drop that follow if you want to get notifications when that happens, or you can follow us on Twitter at RaiseDevs, where we tweet an hour before we tweet in the morning before the show, we tweet an hour before the show, and we tweet 15 minutes before the show. So we will make sure you get notifications that we're going live. So other than that, we are kind of scoping these shows around topics that people submit to us. So if people submit a question to us, we'll answer those questions. We haven't had a whole lot of questions. If you have anything that you need help with, you can submit those questions to raise.dev Hacktoberfest. On that site, there's a submission form. When you submit a question there, we'll get it in front of one of our guests and we'll answer it here live on the show and let you know when it's been answered. If you don't submit questions, we'll just keep doing the things we're doing. We're having a good time. And other than that, the last thing for me to say tonight is, if you are looking to level up in your developer career, Raise.dev is here to help. We are here to help you bridge the developer experience gap, help you get the experience you need to get your first developer job, your second developer job, to get a promotion, to get a raise, whatever it is. We are here to help. You can get matched up with our expert coaches for free now whilst we're in early access by going to raise.dev today and signing up. John, our founder, me and him caught up today, and he was ranting and raving about the wonderful people he'd met in coaching calls this week. So thank you for signing up. I know some of the people he spoke to had been watching the channel, so if that's you, thank you. I appreciate you. So yeah, that's everything from me. We'll be back tomorrow. The first show, there's no morning show tomorrow, no 12:30 European time show tomorrow. Our first show tomorrow is 4 p.m. European time. Marcin, won't be here 12:30 tomorrow. Don't tune in tomorrow, Marcin. 4 p.m. is when we start. So I'll see you then if you join us. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. And if you don't join us tomorrow, I hope you have a great day. And that we'll see you sometime later in the week. Farewell. Good night. Thank you for watching.